Welcome to the home team, the show where no matter who you root for, here you're a part of the home team. And today, week 3 of the NFL season is in the books. Crazy week, very crazy week. So, after 3 weeks of the season, this is about the time where you start to be able to make like some real judgments on teams. So that's something of what we're going to do today. We'll talk a little bit about each game individually, but the bulk of what we're going to be doing is I'm going to try to give 2 to 3 things for each team that I think has shown up consistently and that we can start to really count as a part of the DNA of this team for these years. So let's jump in right away. We will start with Thursday Night Football, where the Buffalo Bills, unsurprisingly, defeated the Miami Dolphins 31-21. What do we know? Let's start with the Bills, okay? Josh Allen, and I think you can say the Bills' offense on the whole, they're going to be a force. I don't think that's shocking to anybody, but you always want to see it a couple of times because sometimes you see teams with great quarterbacks and they just can't quite get it together. That's not going to be the case with the Bills this season. Offensively, they're very good. I think more importantly, the next takeaway is their offensive line is very good. They have no problem just bulldozing through people whenever they decide to, essentially. And that's going to be huge, especially come playoff time. I've long lamented the Bills' strange matchup with in terms of like how they want to play versus the city they play in and the other cities that they had to play in come playoff time. This is a team that always wanted to pass the ball a ton. They wanted to be very like air first. But when you're in Buffalo and when you play playoff games in like Kansas City and Baltimore, running the ball is hugely important, and the Bills are now built to do that. The other thing I think is safe to say about the Bills, though, their defense is not an elite defense this year. It could be a good defense, and they seem to be a timely defense. But in every game, we've basically seen, teams get a lot on them, except for the Jets, but the Jets are their own can of worms. But we've seen the Ravens and the Dolphins both have a fair level of success against the Bills' defense. They're smart, they're veteran, but I don't think you're looking at some dominant group on that side of the ball. So I think one of the things that we're going to see this year is the Bills are going to have to win mostly with their offense, and then it's going to have to be timely defense. As for the Dolphins, what do we know? Frankly, you see, it's tough to give 0-3 teams a compliment, right? But I do think it's fair to say that the Dolphins are going to be able to pass the ball if they want to on the offensive side. Now, I know Tua had the interception and stuff like that. I'm very aware. But they also were efficient and had a lot of big catches on big downs, and they were able to move the ball well enough against the Bills. And they were driving to potentially like get in range and make noise and really make this game a lot more uncomfortable for the Bills. And then obviously the interception happens. But on the whole, the Dolphins were productive enough through the air. But the other stuff is not so positive. First and foremost, we'll just start with the trenches on the whole. Their offensive and defensive lines are both not playing well. Their offensive line, I think that's sort of expected, but their defensive line, that feels like a bit of a disappointment. And I think that really leads to the third overarching thing here. The Dolphins' defense is among the worst in the NFL, possibly the worst. Only time will tell. It's not super often where a team starts off that bad and stays that bad on defense, but it does happen every once in a while. And through 3 games, the Dolphins are absolutely terrible. So overall, the trenches are going to kill them, and it's completely killed one whole side of the ball. And other than the occasional passing efficiency and being able to make a big play every once in a while, like there hasn't been much else to take away for the Dolphins so far. Bengals and Vikings. Very interesting. So the Vikings handed the Bengals their worst loss in franchise history. The Vikings won 48-10, including having an absolutely crazy game from one of their defensive players who I think, he got the highest grade ever in PFF history. Isaiah Rodgers, had the highest grade in PFF history with a 99 overall, which, very, very rare. Doesn't happen all that often, but you love to see it. Has the pick 6, forces 2 fumbles, got some touchdowns out of it. Like the dude did everything you could on defense, and it's a part of the reason why this game was over by halftime. So I think here's what we can take away for the Vikings. Their defense is really good again, and they are like this, and it really ties into the second point about the Vikings, which is they're one of a few teams where you can really sort of confidently say they have one of the best coaching staffs in the entire league. Minnesota certainly has that. And then the other thing is this season is entirely going to hinge on the quarterback position, as we thought the entire way. Carson Wentz didn't really have to do a lot in this game, but he was fine, and they were pretty efficient, and it wasn't a disaster like it was with J.J. McCarthy. So I think unless he gets back pretty soon and they just hand the reins back to him, we could have an interesting conversation coming up here in Minnesota. And I'll throw in one bonus one for the Vikings. Christian Darrisaw returning to that offensive line is one of the biggest additions the Vikings could possibly have. The drop off from him to his backup is a big one, and his return managed, like, I think Trey Hendrickson only had like a pressure or two, something like that. He had a very low number of pressures compared to his production through the previous games. Darrisaw's production and his presence on the offensive line is massive for Cincinnati. Texans and Jaguars. Jags win 17-10 in an absolutely disgustingly ugly game. We'll start with the Jags. Number one, the Jaguars' defense is good. Do I know if it's like one of the elite defenses in the league? I don't yet. But they have shown up on a pretty consistent basis through these first three games. And today they absolutely harassed the Texans. But we will get to talking about the Texans in a minute because that's its own thing. And the Texans were very happy to help the Jaguars in that regard. Number two, I don't like how they're using Travis Hunter. They're doing this thing where they're doing the double thing where he plays some offense, he plays some defense, and frankly, it's leading him to being not particularly impactful on either side of the ball. I think they need to decide on which side of the ball he's going to focus on in his rookie year. And if you decide that later in the year you want to move to playing in both sides, or next year you want to do it, that's fine. But I think you need to get him completely entrenched on one side of the ball and let him just learn it and really try to flourish, because right now it feels like you're just not getting much impact from him on either side. So I'm not a fan of that. And then number three, I'm officially concerned about the Jaguars' weaponry. Part of that's the Travis Hunter thing, but the biggest part is Brian Thomas Jr. Through 3 games, he just cannot get on the same page with Trevor Lawrence, and most of it is his problem, where he's got a ton of drops, he's running lackadaisical routes, he's not really giving his best effort to go get the ball. He's avoided some hits, he's let the ball fly by him so he doesn't get hit, and that's a big problem if you're the Jags. They need to find a way to get him locked in again, or they're going to struggle on offense this whole year. As for the Texans, man, I mean the obvious one, the offensive line is terrible. It's maybe the worst in the NFL. Like it is horrible. They can't pick up any stunt. They can't pick up any blitz. They can barely handle just normal pure rushes. And it's leading to the second thing, which is CJ Stroud is getting a lot of bad habits from it. Even when the guys are open, he's sort of dancing and hitching and not quite. He's not just sitting and throwing with confidence because he thinks he's going to get hit. So they need to get that sorted really fast. And the third point is they have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and I'm not sure that it's going to matter. So that's a damn shame. And I realized I forgot to do the Bengals, so here we are. Bengals, their season's over without Joe Burrow. I don't think that that's a controversial take. I don't think that I would understand Bengals fans wanting to be an apologist and say things like, Browning, he's played really well before. He's done this, he's done that. That's fine. I understand. This is a little bit too big. It's too big of a sample that you're going to need, and too long of a stretch that you're going to need for him to play winning ball. I don't think it's going to happen. And if the Vikings can do that to you, Lord help you when you get into your AFC North matchups and things like that. Number two, I don't like the Bengals coaching staff, and I haven't for a while, because they never play well to start the year, no matter who they have out there. And we're now seeing that I'm not sure they really have the ability to pivot, but I am nervous that the injury to Burrow, combined with the cheapness of the organization, might allow this coaching staff to stay around for another year when they should have been on the hot seat 2 years ago. They should have been on the hot seat last year, and they should have been on the hot seat this year. That injury might save them. And number three, the Bengals defense. It's not good enough to sustain this, and I would say that it's time to consider trading Trey Hendrickson. I don't know if you're going to get what you want for him, but at the very least, it's a lost year. Take what you can, get the best draft pick you can, and move on. It just feels like with the Burrow injury, it's time to just reevaluate the entire plan. And I think that they will. I think that they were always sort of down for the idea of trading him, but I think they just needed the right situation, and I think they might have stumbled into it. Okay, Colts and Titans, 41-20. Never a game that was really in doubt. Let's start with the Colts, because this is one of the more interesting teams all year. Sitting at 3-0, nobody really expected them to be as impressive as they have been, and they have been very impressive. What's real about the Colts? Their offense is legitimately good. Do I think that they're going to sustain this pace the entire year? No, but that's because it's frankly damn near impossible to, unless you're like the 2013 Broncos, the 2018 Chiefs, like the pick any number of Patriots teams and Colts teams during the Manning Brady years. Unless you're a team like that, it's pretty tough. But what we do know is the Colts offense is legit. And my next big takeaway that I'm really, really intrigued by with them is I think they hit on some young guys, in particular Tyler Warren. And that gives them a very, very interesting weapon to have moving forward. A great tight end is one of the toughest things to find and one of the most difficult things to cover. So if he continues at the pace he's on, A, he could and should be Offensive Rookie of the Year, and B, it provides them an entirely new dimension. And then the third one, we just got to talk about Daniel Jones, right? I mean, all the big takeaways for the Colts are on their offense because it's the most shocking thing. Their defense is fine. It's not one of the top groups in the NFL, but it's definitely good. But let's talk about Daniel Jones. And it's really the bigger implication of what we've seen in the last several years. From Daniel Jones to Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, guys like that. We are way, way too quick to judge if a quarterback is good or bad when they're really young and in a really bad spot. I think that a whole bunch of franchises need to take note of this trend, and sort of go back to the idea of when we take one of these guys, the best thing for them might be to let them sit, get some experience, and more importantly, let the roster build up around him before we just throw him out there. Because this is now several guys that went either in the first round or early in the second round who, just through a change of scenery, like have shown that they are very capable starters. And I bet you that the Giants are absolutely pissed right now watching Daniel Jones in Indianapolis and Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia. They're both 3-0 and the Giants are 0-3. Like, I bet the Giants would love to have an offense that includes Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Malik Neighbors right about now. And I'm guilty of this too because I wasn't a big Daniel Jones believer. But I did believe he would be good with the Colts, but I didn't expect this. But I think one of the big takeaways is situation matters so much. And huge credit to Shane Steichen and his staff for continuing this trend and proving what we all thought for years, which is that the Colts are a really good situation if somebody would just step into the role and really embrace it and be given a proper shot at it. So I think that this is sort of a takeaway as much as it is for the Colts in saying that they've found a pretty good quarterback, and I suppose we have to wait out the rest of the year to see how much it maintains, but at least in concept, we've got another example that we need to be way more patient with these quarterbacks. It's the toughest position in sports, and on top of being the toughest position, it's also so reliant on what goes on around you that I think we need to have a little bit more nuance in our approach to all of these guys as we look at them, especially the guys that are faltering. We need to have a lot more grace about what's going on around them. As for the Titans, speaking of bad things going on around a rookie quarterback, number one, this is the most undisciplined team in football. Flags everywhere, drops, they do all the things that unfocused, unrefined teams do. And I think that's really unfortunate because you have Cam Ward in there, and that is not good for his development. And that all falls on my second thing, which is I don't think Brian Callahan is the coach of this team. And he shouldn't be the coach of this team. I don't think he has earned that spot necessarily. I'm always weary of taking coordinators that simply had Joe Burrow or had Josh Allen or had Patrick Mahomes or something like that. Like, I'm weary of taking those guys because how much of it really is you and how much of it is the fact that you just have a very rarely and uniquely talented quarterback who can make a lot of things look really good. But through 2 years in Tennessee, I've seen no reason to believe that they have the right coach. Then the third point is I am already nervous about the overall morale of the Titans because Colts players before the game are talking like, you can tell before the game the Titans guys don't even really want to be there. They're all like, I'm really hoping this team is not checked out at this crucial juncture in their franchise. And if they are, they could be staring down another first overall type of year. The Titans are one of the worst teams in the league, and it's because of just sheer disciplinary issues. If you're already talking about these things in week 3, which kind of similar like the Dolphins having a players only meeting after week 1, I think the Titans are sort of ready to nosedive, and these next couple weeks are going to have to tell us a lot about the resilience of this team because right now these losses have gotten worse and worse and worse, and they're sort of progressing in the wrong direction, and Cam Ward's doing some weird stuff now, and there's drops and shit, everything. I think Tennessee is going to need a pretty hard reset after this season is the overall takeaway there. Raiders and Commanders. Okay, Commanders win 41-24. The good news is they have a great backup quarterback. We've seen this with a couple teams where they've had to prove this, and the Commanders have certainly done it. They even did a little bit last year, but Mariota is a good backup quarterback, and it shows the strength of the Commanders roster on the whole, that you can put a backup quarterback in there and you can beat a team that there's a lot of people that like. I'm a little more down on the Raiders than most, but a lot of people do like the Raiders and seem to like their talent and their potential and what they could be this year. I like them going forward, but not so much this year. But the fact that you can beat a team like the Raiders, who at the very least have some talented guys, and you can basically, you beat them pretty handily with your backup quarterback, it's a good sign for them. Number 2, Dan Quinn. We see him take the hit on the sideline, and he's got the bloody nose. He's got all that type of stuff. He's still energetic and doing all those things. That's the reason why people love Dan Quinn. It's the reason I love Dan Quinn. So I'm a big fan of this Commanders coaching staff, where they bring energy, they bring resiliency, and it all shows. And it shows that his personality, like, it comes across in that team. And I think that that's one of the more important things for a coach. Does your team really bring your attitude to the field? And the Commanders damn sure do. And then the third thing for the Commanders is, I don't know exactly the level of contender they are this year, but I always said that this year is much more contingent. Like their success or failure in my mind this year is not so much about the Lombardi Trophy. It's much more about, do we prove that last year's not a flash in the pan? Do we prove that last year isn't the anomaly? Do we prove that we are going to be a team who is going to contend and is building towards being a legitimate contender? And through 3 weeks, I think the Commanders are going to do that. And I think there's a whole lot of reason for optimism in D.C. as a result. As for the Raiders, there's a whole lot of people talking a lot about Ashton Jeanty and how he's not playing well. I think what we need to talk about is how the Raiders' offensive line has been one of the worst run blocking groups in the entire league, and I think that that's going to continue, and it's the main reason I didn't pick Ashton Jeanty to win Rookie of the Year. I think that he is just behind an offensive line that's not going to allow him to thrive, and the same argument can be made for Geno Smith, but Jeanty's the one that's getting talked about more. I think the Raiders got a good running back, but I also think that he's not the player that they should have taken at that spot. This is another lesson in just how much situation matters, especially for certain positions. Ashton Jeanty is averaging less than a yard per carry before contact. That's not enough. He's making guys miss. He's trucking guys. He's doing all this kind of stuff to get a yard, to get 2 yards. And I think for the Raiders, they're not going to have the kind of offense that they really want until they sort out their offensive line. Unless you're going to tell me that, like, is Jeanty not being decisive enough? Is he not doing that? I mean, who knows? Ultimately, like maybe, but we see it all the time with basically every other team in the league. Like there are certain stats that are pretty good indicators of if your run game is going to succeed. Yards before contact's one of them, and the Raiders are basically at the bottom of the league. So I think we need to have a conversation about that. Number two, they are talented, but they simply aren't talented enough on defense. I love Max Crosby. He's one of my favorite players in the league. But the rest of that defense just is not there right now, especially in the middle of the field. Jamal Adams, of all people, is actually playing decently well. But the rest of the people around the middle of the field for the Raiders are not. And in the modern NFL, that's where everybody's getting, that's where everybody wants to attack. So the Raiders' defense, outside of Max Crosby, they're just going to be a problem for them continuing this year. But number three, I wanna have some positivity here for the Raiders because there's a lot of reason for optimism. Despite the fact that I don't think the Raiders are a playoff team this year, despite the fact I don't even know if they're going to have a winning record, I don't think they're going to be like a particularly great team this year at all. What I do think is they seem more stable, they seem more calm, like they seem to be on the right track. So I don't want to get so caught up in wins and losses for the Raiders as I want to say that I think it's an organization that's definitely on the right track, and they're competitive in places where they wouldn't be competitive before, and they are accumulating talent. So I think that the other big thing to take note of with the Raiders is this is just going to take time. I think that the fact the offense played better this week, that's good. Brock Bowers is getting more healthy. I think this is just a team that needs another offseason, really, to solidify up the defense, and then we can really talk about the Raiders. But despite the fact that I don't think their offensive line's playing well and I don't think their defense is talented enough, I do think that they're heading in the right way. Rams-Eagles. Crazy game. We all know how this one went. Eagles blocked the kick to win. They actually blocked 2 kicks in the game, but the last one's the one that we're all going to talk about. Overall, let's start with the Eagles. Okay. They are clearly still one of the most talented teams in the NFL, but I can't quite explain it. They just feel different. And it could just be it's early in the season, but this reminds me a lot of 2 years ago, where they're winning sort of these games by hook or by crook, even though a game like this, I would say that on the whole, the Rams outplayed them. But they just find little ways to win. There's a strong argument to be made that that's positive. There's also a strong argument to be made that eventually your luck runs out. So this is a team with such upside, but they just don't feel like they're quite coalescing yet. And I am willing to give them more leash than most when it comes to this, but I'm watching for that in the next couple of games. Is this team going to really come together, or is it going to keep feeling kind of weird? Next takeaway. The Jalen Hurts talk. I think that we need to put Jalen Hurts in perspective here, because this is a game where, whether we like it or not, we clearly have to give him credit. He made the throws when they needed to, because the Rams were the first team this year to just shut down their run game. And they shut down their run game last time they played them, which is why I think the Rams are probably not a great matchup for the Eagles on the whole. But we saw the other side of the Eagles offense. And I think that the best way to describe Jalen Hurts is he's obviously good enough for the Rams to win any game, or for the Eagles to win any game. But he's also not the he's not the reason that, how do I put this? They don't want him to be the reason that they win. Like, they want to win mostly through balance, mostly through the run game, and then when they absolutely need to, then they want to throw it. And that's fine. But I think that we need to just sort of put that in the context of Jalen Hurts is not somebody who can't throw the ball. He's somebody who simply isn't asked to all that much. But when he is, he tends to come through. And you can argue that's because of his line, his weapon, whatever it is. Whatever reason you want, it does work. And I think that puts him, he's a quarterback who, he's firmly in the bottom half of the top 10. I don't think he's one of the top 5 guys, but on any given week, he can be I would say he's probably he's somewhere around 6 or 7. That's probably where he ranks. But that's more than good enough. But I do think that him opening it up is a huge part of this Eagles offense really coming together, because otherwise it just, I described it as feeling like watching an offense with training wheels. And this was the first game. It felt like they really sort of took them off because they had to. And then the last point about the Eagles. Despite all their talent, despite all the weirdness, all that kind of stuff. I think that the most interesting thing about the Eagles, really, for me, is just their defense. And last year, they were completely just shutting people down by the end of the year. I am interested to see how that continues because, I mean, Kansas City, they sort of shut down. Dallas, they sort of shut down. The Rams, they really didn't. I want to see their defense get back to shutting people down, like completely. Like we've seen a couple teams, the Browns most notably. I think at this point they're the ones that have stuck out the most through 3 weeks, where they just are eliminating things. And I want to see the Eagles get back to that because right now I see their secondary in particular. They gave up a few too many plays, and I think that's pretty odd given that their pass rush is so, I mean, or potentially so good. I hold Jalen Carter in very high esteem despite his his tendency to make a boneheaded like emotional decision every once in a while. But other than that, I think they have one of like the best interior rushes in the league and effective enough off the edges. But I want to see the Eagles get back to dominating on defense, and I think to do that, the secondary's got to tighten some things up. That could come with experience because they're obviously young, but that's the one thing I see with the Eagles' defense. Where I'm like, they've let a couple of plays really sort of get free in there, and even in the Dallas game, a huge reason why that score is not worse is just the fact that the Dallas receivers were just dropping the football. So I want to see the Eagles secondary really step it up, or I think that they're a little more vulnerable than people think. As for the Rams, frustrating game right here, but overall, what you take away from this is the Rams' defensive line is really, really good. Nobody else has been able to shut down the Eagles' run game, and the Rams did. I think what you also take away from this is they are as good as any NFC contender if they stay healthy. Like they've been able to step up to every challenge, and for the most part, I mean, obviously, the Eagles won the game, but this felt like a game where the Rams pretty much outplayed them. They just missed a couple of opportunities here and there, but on the whole, it felt like they played better. And then the last point is the Rams may have the best receiving duo in the league. I don't think that that's surprising to anyone necessarily, but I needed a couple weeks just to sort of let them each have their moments and see how they fit together. It works really well. I think that as long as these guys stay healthy, because Devontae Adams is older and Matthew Stafford's older, so I'm always worried about that. But so long as that happens and that defensive line stays ferocious, yeah, they're real dangerous. They could beat anyone. Falcons 0, Panthers 30. This is a game where I don't like to take anything from because this game made no sense. Ugh, okay. What do we take away from it? I mean, I guess we'll start with Carolina. It's so weird because the first two games are so different to this game. I would tend to believe that they're probably closer to the first two games than to this game, but here's what I believe they hit on Tetairoa McMillan. I think he's a guy who he looks like he's shaping up to be a legitimate number one for them, and I think that's quite good. He didn't have big numbers in this game because, quite frankly, like none of the offenses actually did anything that crazy. Like Bryce Young had 120 yards and all that kind of stuff. My second takeaway overall, other than Tet McMillan, I'm a little worried about the Bryce Young thing. There's a lot of optimism at the end of last year, but that sort of had some cool water thrown onto it to start this season. This game, as impressive as it is overall, it's one game, and I don't think that gets to wipe out everything else we've seen, which is he's played okay, but probably not what you're hoping for from a number one pick. And then the third thing for Carolina. God, this is weird. Such a weird game. I mean, I guess you try to take something away from the Panthers' defense, even though this felt so... Like, I'm trying to figure out what the hell this meant for either of these teams. I mean, basically, they just had some guys who jumped balls and picked them off. I mean, that's really the biggest difference, that and the missed field goals. I guess what it says is Carolina's got the potential to capitalize on mistakes. Like there's some teams that no matter what you give them, you just feel like they're not really going to matter. But I think Carolina's showing that they've made enough growth that if you're going to play sloppy football, then they have the capacity now to beat you. Like they have just enough. And the Falcons are very willing to oblige. Now let's go to Atlanta. Biggest takeaways. I'll start with their defense. Because their defense played quite well last week, and I know we were all talking about it, and the young pass rushers doing good, all that kind of stuff. That did not happen this week. But I think this really reminds you of the volatility of young players, and that this is a long season. And when you're relying on so many young guys, you're going to have weeks where it just completely doesn't work. And that's frustrating, and that's difficult, but it is also reality. And so if you're Atlanta, I think this, in a way, it's kind of like a burn the tape game on the defense. Learn some hard lessons, but other than that, we're moving on from this game if you're the defense. Now, if you're the offense, that's a different damn story. I do not like the way the Falcons offense is coached and is operated. They feel like they don't capitalize on any of the talent they have. Like, I think that I'll spin this into just a bigger point of this coaching staff might be in danger. They're already making changes. I think they fired their wide receivers coach after this game. Like, okay, that's the wide receiver coach caused you to score 0 points. Cool. It feels sloppy. It feels disorganized, and it feels like they're panicking. And I think that, frankly, some of these guys are in genuine danger of losing their jobs at the end of this season, including Raheem Morris. This is the kind of game that gets the owner on your ass. And, I mean, rightfully so. You're losing 30-0 to one of the worst teams in the league. Then last up, I guess you got to talk about Michael Penix. Through 3 games, he hasn't been particularly impressive. They made it feisty against Tampa Bay, but lost. They sort of dominated the Vikings, although their offense felt like they kept short-circuiting right when it got important in the red zone. So their offense wasn't super impressive in that game. And then this game, obviously, they do nothing. And once again, this goes to the point of what we mentioned earlier with Daniel Jones and things like that. As much as this seems dark, and I think he even got benched, listen, getting benched in this game, I don't think necessarily matters. At some point, you just pull your starters and live to fight another day. But I have heard people already talking about, God, you need to do what the Panthers did with Bryce Young, sit him down, sort of let him reset. I think that they need a lot more time than this to do that because he's shown enough promise. But there's going to be a conversation here soon about what's Michael Penix looking like. I think we need to really slow our roll on that until we get a really good idea of why are they doing certain things on offense. Why does it feel like they're always talented and it never clicks? Usually that has more to do with coaching. So I think from the Falcons, my biggest takeaway is this regime is on the freaking hot seat going forward. Steelers 21, Patriots 14. My goodness. Okay, if you're the Steelers, what do you take away from this game? I still have big concerns about the Steelers defense, and I have concerns about the Steelers offense as well. Defensively, you managed to force 5 turnovers, but a whole bunch of those, almost all of them, came on the Pittsburgh side of the field after the Patriots were pretty easily just driving the ball on them over and over and over and over and over again. I know that we give some credit for the takeaways, but fumbles in particular, that's more on the offensive player. The interception got tipped by Cam Hayward. It might have been picked anyways, but the Cam Hayward tipping it definitely helped. That's one where you attribute that to the defense. But especially fumbling going into the end zone. I mean, my goodness. There were basically all of the Patriots' turnovers are what led to Steelers' points. And obviously some of them were on the goal line and directly took away points from New England. So if you want the story of the game, it's that. But if you're Pittsburgh, you're happy you got the turnovers, but you can't be happy about the fact that you were getting, you were still letting them go up and down the field on you. In terms of their offense, pretty anemic. Not great for the most part. Aaron Rodgers ends the day with 2 touchdowns and things like that, but wasn't really a great day for him overall. They struggled to get a whole lot of things going, and this is a game where it felt like the Steelers won this game almost just sort of incidentally because they were playing the Patriots, who were determined to just self-destruct. So I guess third overall, my big take here is I don't think the Steelers are a contender this year. Offensively, we got problems. Defensively, we got problems. They're 2-1, but they feel like a really fake 2-1. Um, so I this is a team that I was pretty optimistic about going into the year, but I feel kind of let down by the Steelers. As for the Patriots, tough one, man. I mean, I suppose if you want to go positives, you basically just flip the Steelers conversation where it's like you were moving the ball, you're doing a lot of great things, but then just really sloppy in terms of ball security. And if like everybody took their turn, Ramondre Stevenson fumbled the ball, Drake May fumbled the ball. Who else fumbled the ball? One more guy fumbled the football. Who was it? I think Gainwell. No, that's for the Steelers. Gibson. Yeah, he fumbled the ball. Henderson didn't fumble the ball, but averaged only 2.5 yards a carry. So overall, not a great day for the Patriots running game. Overall for the Patriots, here's what I'll say. I'm encouraged by their offense because overall, they've been able to move the ball pretty well this year. I am discouraged by their overall level of talent. I don't think they're a team that's going to be able to capitalize in the way that some people thought they could going into this year. I don't think the playoffs are in their future this year. But third, kind of like the Raiders, I think this is a team that definitely is on the ascent. I've liked the way Drake May plays. He has 2 plays a game where it's just like they're kind of boneheaded. That's where his fumble was, where it's just like you can tell they're all around you. You need to secure the ball and not try to like get it up and fling. Like you can't do that. But overall, I think the Patriots are probably a year away, but I think they're on the right path. Packers and Browns. Packers fans, I would love to say there's something to make you feel better on this, but there's really not. Bad day at the office. So for the Browns, what do we take away? Let's do the positive one first. They might be the best defense in the NFL. They played 3 teams and 3 teams that are all pretty decent and shut them all down pretty effectively. Obviously, the Packers were on a roll. The Ravens, they gave up 41, but a lot of that was the Browns' offense just turning the ball over and giving them short fields and things like that. Like it's that game's not as ugly as the score would indicate. And then the Bengals, 17 points. I know people are going to say that, they're the Bengals, and that's true, but they did hold the Joe Burrow Bengals. Not a lot of people are going to get a chance to play Joe Burrow this year. They held the Joe Burrow Bengals to 17 points. Their defensive line in particular is ferocious. Then on the other side of the ball, they're pretty anemic, and it's not good, and I'm not a big fan of it. And I do think that at some point this year we're going to see those rookie quarterbacks. And then third overall, the Browns, I don't think are as bad as people thought. They're certainly not as bad as I thought. They're going to mess around and win games and play spoiler to people. And if their offense shows any sign of life at all, this could be a very sneaky team. I don't want to go so far as to say they'll get a wild card spot or something like that, but if their offense just shows any sign of life, if you have a defense that's playing like that, you have the potential to win it like more games than people would ever think. Okay, as for the Packers, we'll get the negative out of the way because I think it's really easy to have an overall positive view of the Packers still. Negative out of the way. I think the Packers were looking past opponents. They were talking, like one of the players obviously had a quote this week saying that I think we're going to go undefeated, or I think we can go undefeated. I should be clear. Saying things like that. And I think that shows that they have guys that were not particularly locked in and they were probably looking past the Browns. I don't think that's a good sign at all. I think that overall they need to be much more concerned about what's directly in front of them because this is still the NFL and the Packers are not that much more talented than any other team. They're not even that much more talented than the teams in their division if they're more talented at all. So I think the Packers needed this as a nice little wake-up call to remind you that, hey, man, we can get beat by anyone at any time. Number 2, Jordan Love, still pretty inconsistent. Played really good through the first 2 weeks, came in today, played really bad, and it's just one of those things where he's done this for his whole career, and it's just, yeah, it's he continues to just be strange where he's like he keeps throwing off his back foot, he's doing this, and maybe it's because it's the Browns, but I feel like it's every week. Like I think Jordan Love's inconsistency is where everything lies. But then overall, I think what we need to take away from this for the Packers is they're a damn dangerous team. They're going to stay a damn dangerous team. And every team loses a game that they shouldn't each year. It happens. It sucks that it happens because sometimes that's the game that means that you're going on the road in January. But uh, the sky's not falling in Green Bay. Okay, Jets, Buccaneers. Oh, the Buccaneers. Are they the most clutch team in the NFL? Maybe. They beat the Jets 29-27 on a last-second field goal and another game with a blocked field goal where the Jets returned it for a touchdown, although they lost. What do we feel here? Okay, Tampa Bay. I love watching Baker Mayfield play football. He's one of the most clutch guys in the NFL. He's got like his attitude is maybe my favorite among quarterbacks, or it's up there. I love watching him play ball. Number two, they definitely hit on Emeka Egbuka. He is damn good. I think Chris Godwin's role in the offense is going to get smaller and smaller upon his return. Mike Evans pulls the hamstring in this game, so I think we're going to see Egbuka get even more looks. And as time goes on here, I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the year he's their number one. What does that do in terms of like the potential history for Mike Evans? Getting to that 1,000-yard mark, who knows? But I think the Buccaneers got a real good one. And then third overall here. So I don't like the Tampa Bay's continually having to come from behind to win these games, but they definitely feel good, and they are about to get some reinforcements on the offensive line. They lose Cody Mock for the year, but Tristan Wirfs is coming back, which allows their normal center, who is currently playing left tackle, to kick back into center, and Wirfs goes into left tackle. So I think they're going to re-solidify their offensive line, which will make them even better. As for the Jets, tough one to lose, especially in the way that you lost it. I'm concerned about the Jets' defense. I don't like that they haven't been able to stop anyone yet. The Patriots scored a bunch on them. The Bucs scored a bunch on them. The Steelers scored a bunch on them. Two of those teams are not teams with great offenses in the Patriots and the Steelers. The Bucs, okay, fine. They're feisty and they're good. I get it. It can happen. But the Jets' defense was supposed to be their strength. It's supposed to be Aaron Glenn's strength, and it does not feel like it. Offensively, I just think they're too bland. It's either we throw to Garrett Wilson or we're just running the ball with Breece Hall, and like there's nothing going on there that's super creative. And I don't know. The Fields injury in week 2 makes things really difficult in terms of just judging their quarterback situation. So I'm simply not going to right now. That's something that needs a little bit more time. But the Jets offense on the whole, it's not doing enough. And then as for the like an overall takeaway with the Jets, this is a team that I'm a big fan of Aaron Glenn, but this team is like it feels like they still don't have an identity. It feels like they just don't know what kind of football team they want to be because nothing is particularly functioning well right now. And I don't fully understand it because I thought the Glenn hiring was going to bring them like a nice nasty edge. They were going to lean into defense, and it just feels like none of that's come together. So the Jets remain this strange, dysfunctional enigma in the Northeast. Broncos, Chargers, tough if you're the Broncos. Now they've lost 2 consecutive games on the last second field goals. If you're the Chargers, number one, let's start with Justin Herbert. If so long as he stays healthy, he's a top 5 quarterback, and he's already sort of making his case like as like an early season MVP candidate. That can change very quickly, but to start the year, I think the only quarterback you could really argue is playing better than him is like Josh Allen, maybe. And that might be it. And you could make the argument Herbert's playing better. Number 2, the Chargers defense. Also very, very good. Them and the Browns have been the 2 that have impressed me the most. So this team, much like we've mentioned, like I mentioned specifically in this video with the Commanders, this team feels like it's got Jim Harbaugh's identity. It's hard-nosed, it's physical, but it's also creative and adaptable. And, it's just they feel like the highest version of a Jim Harbaugh team, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if it's the best defense he's ever had in the NFL. I don't know if it's the best offense he'll like have by the end of the year, all that kind of stuff. But this feels like sort of the image that his old 49er teams were built in. Just moved down the coast a little bit. And then overall, the Chargers have won 3 division games to start the year. They have a stranglehold on the AFC West, and they feel like they are a legit contender. They feel like they took a step, and I'm fully willing to admit that I was wrong about them because I was not particularly high on them coming into the year. So massive credit to them. I think they're a team that's a legitimate contender. As for the Broncos, okay. Defensively, a lot better than the Colts game. I don't care much about beating up on the Titans. You're supposed to. The Colts did a little more than I would have liked, but this game, other than the very end of the game, the Broncos defense sort of like kept it on the Chargers and like kind of beat them up through like the entire middle portion of the game. But they just weren't able to close it out. And I think a big reason we're seeing that is, like, I'll put it like this. My biggest takeaway is I still have huge faith in the Denver defense. I think they're really good. I think they're really talented. I think they are being hurt by my second take, which is the Broncos offense is not talented enough at receiver. Now they had a couple plays today, which, I mean, my second and my third point they're tied in together. So I'll just do them both. Bo Nix is missing people and he's playing terribly. And on top of that, they don't have a whole lot of guys who can consistently beat man coverage. And it feels like they're having a different guy a week do it, but they're never able to get multiple people showing up and playing well at the skill positions. And that's a problem. I would say the biggest problem is Bo Nix, though. He's not playing well. He's jittery. He can't stay still. He's missing. I think he missed like 3 big throws in this game that had he hit even one of them, they probably win this game. So he's been playing bad. Like, in terms of how he's graded out, it's basically the bottom of the league in, like, everything. So if he's not going to play better, then all the stuff they did this offseason, everything, it's not going to matter. So if you're Denver, the most important thing is, okay, what do we got to do to get him in rhythm? What are the easy things we can do? What are the things that he is doing well and that we can just lean into to try to get him playing confidently, because that's not how it looks. Okay. Saints and Seahawks. Saints, the Seahawks blow them out 44-13. Not great. Let's start with the Seahawks. Offensively, they've played very, very well since week 1. I don't put too much stock into this game other than they beat up on a bad opponent, which is what good teams do. So I feel confident that Seattle is a good football team. Offensively, they're playing well. Sam Darnold's playing very well. It looks like Minnesota Sam Darnold. It was not the anomaly. So that's awesome if you're a Seahawks fan. Number 2, their defense. I'm also not going to take too much away from this game, but on the whole, their defense has impressed me. And then I suppose the third overall point is I think Seattle, should they stay healthy, we're sort of seeing that they're very much viable to win the NFC West. I think there's 3 teams that are viable for it. Seattle is extremely viable. One of those teams is on the verge of falling off if they can't get healthy, but right now, Seattle looks very viable to not only make the playoffs, but be dangerous in the playoffs. Cowboys and Bears. Boy, oh boy. Okay, Bears win 31-14. First win of the Ben Johnson era. Hooray. I also think that this is a game that indicates a couple things. Number 1, they did the same thing they have for the first few games. They play really well on script to start the game, which usually is the sign that the game plan itself is a good game plan and it works. Now it's about maintaining as it's a little bit more free-flowing in terms of we're going to throw in this wrinkle here, we're going to do this. They sort of shut this down. Like, as the in-game adjustments come, that's where the Bears have struggled to maintain. This game they did. How much of that is on them and how much is their opponent? Time will tell. But this is sort of a proof of concept game in a lot of ways for the Bears, that it's possible and that it might just need a little bit more time before they're able to do this against good teams. But this is a game that proved that the Bears can do this kind of thing. Second one, the Bears defense played better than I thought they would. So I need a little bit more time to really see what they are, because now they played good against Dallas. They played horrible against Detroit. and then they played good for 3 quarters against Minnesota. So, if anything, the Bears' defense is consistently inconsistent, and I think if anything, it'll add up to them being a middling defense that isn't one of the worst in the league, but is also not some big game-changing group. Overall, I land sort of where I do about the Patriots and the Raiders, which is the Bears probably are not going to make the playoffs this year, I would imagine, but I think that they have started to put the infrastructure in place to be a consistent playoff team going forward. Dallas, tough day at the office if you're the Cowboys. Defensively, they're bad. They're not playing good on defense. They haven't at any point, and it's not going to change. It most likely. You trade away one of the best defenders in the league, and it doesn't get any easier for you when you do that. Offense, disappointing game overall. Dak Prescott didn't play terrible in this game, but the big news coming out is CeeDee Lamb leaves the game with a high ankle sprain, and he's going to miss a couple of weeks. George Pickens, we got our first George Pickens crash out as a Cowboy. Ball bounces off his hands and is intercepted by Tremaine Edmonds, and all of a sudden he's throwing his helmet on the sideline, which I get it. But I think the Cowboys' offense is going to have to be a whole lot better. We're going to see exactly what George Pickens is worth in these next couple of weeks. And then overall with the Cowboys, this feels like a team that's going to end the year with a losing record, but they're going to be a team that doesn't necessarily lay down and get beat easily. I just don't think any team with that bad of a defense is going to be able to make any noise. And I wonder what Jerry does, if he's super rash about it or if he's a little bit more reasonable. I'm just not sure. I think that what we're seeing is what basically everybody outside of the Jones family, and I'm not even sure I want to say the Jones family, because I think there are members of that family that know that what they're doing is weird, outside of Jerry Jones in particular. Everything that everybody was talking about came to fruition. They're not talented enough. They haven't put money in the right places. They paid old hurt guys, but they won't pay Micah Parsons. Their horrible GM has sank what was a previously talented roster. Cardinals 49ers. Okay. Niners win 15-16 or 16-15 somehow. This team's trying to take years off my life. And, okay, here are the 3 things that are certain for the 49ers. I'm going to be pretty succinct here with them because obviously they're my favorite team, and watching these 3 games has made a couple of things very clear. Number 1, this team's very gritty, and despite their youth, they are talented still, and they fly around, and they're finding ways to win games where they previously lost them, and I think that's very encouraging. Number 2, this is another team that has one of the better coaching staffs in the league. Despite all their injuries, they're still finding ways to win games, against teams that aren't terrible. The Seattle win in particular looks really good. Arizona was 2-0, and I don't count the New Orleans win for much for anybody, so I won't for the 49ers either, other than to say they had to win 2 on the road to start the year. And then, despite the fact that they have a great coaching staff and that they're super gritty and have shown a lot of heart, with these injuries, it just might not matter. They lose Nick Bosa for the year in this game, which sucks. And I mean, despite the fact they're 3-0, there is only so much that you can really sustain at some point. They're winning all these games close. It kind of feels like smoke and mirrors at times, but it's one of those times where you're really proud to be a fan of the team because there's so often where teams lay down in these situations and they just sort of accept that it's not going to happen, but they haven't done that, and backup quarterbacks are coming in, and backup offensive linemen, backup defensive linemen, backup safeties, backup wide receiver, everybody's a backup, and they're still finding ways to win these games, but it just, the Bosa injury in particular, just feels like that could just be the one that's just a little bit too much. Now they have Jacksonville coming to town. I could see them beating Jacksonville and being 4-0, but I think that when they play the Rams in Week 5, that's sort of going to be rude awakening time, if I had to guess. Arizona. This has got to be a disappointing game if you're the Cardinals, for sure. Um, I'll say this. Defensively, I think they're good. They're competitive. They're scrappy. They're all sorts of things. Offensively, they have major problems. Um, Especially now that James Conner is out for the year. I hope he's gonna be all right. It was one of those injuries where they didn't really want to show a replay of it. I think they said they showed it. They showed it once, and you can tell he got rolled up on his ankle. It looked ugly. So we wish him a speedy recovery. But in terms of the Cardinals and how they have to move forward, he was kind of their best weapon. I mean, I won't necessarily. I'll say Trey McBride's his best, but he's the guy they were able to get the ball to the most consistently. And then, like, just offensively, they're weird offensively. They got so much talent and it doesn't work, which once again points me to coaches. Like, you can tell good coaching by how they elevate guys. Like, even how they elevate guys that aren't as talented, like take Shanahan. I mean, they might not have, like, score wise, it doesn't look super pretty, but they move the ball fine ultimately. And and they're doing it with backups. Like, the 49ers JV offense outscored the Cardinal starters, and the Cardinal starters are not an untalented group. And that's the same way you spot bad coaching. How is it that you're not able to capitalize on talented guys? Um, so there's that, and then Marvin Harrison is starting to scare me. He had a couple of drops in this game. One is just horribly ugly that everybody's seen, and that's starting to scare me. But I'm willing to give him a little bit more time because I do think it's more important the fact that he got open. He'll make that catch more times than he doesn't, but I don't know. That's starting to look bad. But overall for the Cardinals, man, I think they're the fourth best team in the NFC West despite the injured ass 49ers. Like, Arizona just refuses to get it together. Okay. Chiefs, Giants. Not much to take away from this game, if I'm being honest with you. Overall, with the Chiefs, their offensive production entirely is going to hinge on the return of those wide receivers and the production of those guys when they return. Beyond that, the Chiefs simply don't have the firepower to contend in the way that they once did. Their defense, it played a lot better in this game. The Giants tend to be pretty accommodating of that sort of thing. So it's tough to really view this game as a game that you're going to take a lot away from. But I suppose big picture, their defense is playing better. They're getting reinforcements. And even better for them, outside of the Chargers, the rest of their division is now 1-2. So the Chiefs are right back in it. So I think overall that's what you take away from it, which is you got reinforcements coming on offense, and this could have been sort of a get-right spot for your defense, and then the rest of your division outside of the Chargers is kind of evened out. As for the Giants, they have now benched Russell Wilson for Jackson Dart. I think that's rash. I think that's hasty. I think that that's not a good decision. Your offense is bad, and it's based entirely on deep shots. But I will say this in terms of positive. Cam Scatabo, that dude he is just electric when he gets the ball in his hands. He gets the ball, and then the first thing he does is he's like, I'm going to run headfirst into a defender. And it is quite fun to watch. And so I will say that. So Jackson Dart is the starter, but I think they got a hit in Scattaboo, and you got Neighbors. So I think that they're starting to build some talent on the Giants offense, but just not on that offensive line, which is why I hate the Dart thing. The Giants, I think this regime is going to be over after this year, unless Jackson Dart is truly transcendent. But barring that, I don't think there's much that you can do to save that Giants staff. Sorry. Okay, Lions-Ravens. This was a big game. Big game. Huge props to Detroit going to Baltimore and winning. So the Lions. I, at this point, am quite willing to throw out week 1 as the anomaly game. We see that every year with a couple of teams. That feels like that's what happened. That's what has happened with Detroit. The Lions' offense is really damn good, man. Really damn good. Yeah. They are still the same gritty, aggressive. I mean, I don't know how Dan Campbell walks around with those brass balls of his, given the amount of plays on 4th down and crucial situations that they went for and converted. Like, he's shown that he's still very confident in those coordinators, those new guys, uh, and rightfully so. Um, the Detroit defense played damn good also. I know the Ravens scored 30, but you got to sort of grade these things on a curve when you're playing against Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or, the typical guys up there in the top five. Um, they sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times. That's quite rare with somebody as elusive as him. So I think that their issues of like pass rush potentially might be vastly overstated. Um, Aiden Hutchinson looks all the way back too, which is awesome to see. So overall, I'll say this: Detroit offense as good as ever. Detroit defense healthy, like much healthier than they were at the end of last year. Looks formidable, and overall, I'm willing to say that Week 1's the anomaly, and I'm frankly not so sure that they aren't just better than the Packers overall going forward. We'll see though. Ravens, okay, Ravens are 1-2, but 2 of those losses are the Lions and Bills. Granted, you've only beaten the Browns, so not great there. I'm a little more concerned about the Ravens defense. I am, once again, you sort of grade on a curve given that, Josh Allen and Jared Goff and that offense are the offenses that tore them up. It's not so much the points, it's how the points were being scored, which is they just lined it up and ran the ball. If they wanted to run the ball on this Ravens defense, all they had to do was line up and simply do it. Like, the Ravens offered such little resistance in the run game that the pass game just opened wide up, and I think that that's the thing that scares me more than anything. The Ravens are a team that stops the run. They got physical linebackers. They pay their defensive linemen. Like, they have a deep secondary, which is supposed to be able to like free up their safeties to come up and support. Like, and it doesn't work right now, and so that concerns me. Lamar still looks like Lamar. He's a great player, but it does feel like this team just has a habit of coming up short in big games against the best teams. And they've always done this for the most part. Like, they feel like the team that always comes in second place in these matchups. And this was just alarming just because of how it happened. Like, the Lions came into Baltimore and out-physicaled the Ravens. They came into Baltimore and out-Ravened the Ravens. Like, that has not happened very often. But my overall take is this: the Ravens are going to be fine. They started off with 2 of their 3 tougher matchups for the whole year, like off the bat. I think they're going to go on a run. They'll get some momentum. They'll do all that. But I am concerned about them in the big games because right now they're showing that same trend of they're just going to come up a little short. Like, they're, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That feels like what it is for the Ravens. And, yeah, I picked them to win the Super Bowl, and I'm not loving that right now. Okay, so that is sort of the recap of Week 2, as well as a sort of big picture takeaway thing for all the teams. So, hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you so much, and hopefully everybody a good weekend of football. Peace.